You ever notice how every time you think you can finally breathe, something tightens around your throat? It's not a new bill. Not some crisis you saw coming. It's this quiet pressure that shows up exactly when you thought you were safe. You pay what you owe. You handle your business. You do everything right. So why doesn't the relief ever stick? Why does financial peace feel like it's got an expiration date? Why the second you let your guard down, the debt moves on its own, invisible but tighter? Maybe it's not about losing control. Maybe it's about believing you ever had it in the first place. That's the trap nobody talks about. The one that doesn't announce itself. The one that waits until you're comfortable, then pulls the floor out from under you so slowly you don't even realize you're falling until you hit bottom. This isn't about poor choices. This is about the game being rigged from the jump. And you're about to see exactly how. If that just hit different, subscribe right now. This channel exists to expose the financial mechanisms they don't want you questioning, because they work better when nobody's paying attention. Hit that like too. It tells the algorithm this kind of content needs to reach people living this silent pressure every single day. We're not here for comfort. We're here for clarity. Let's go. At first, everything looked manageable. The person in this story, and yeah, it could easily be you, didn't see themselves as someone drowning in debt. Bills got paid. Minimum payments went through. Paycheck came in. Life kept moving. There was this constant low-level stress, sure. But also this belief that it was temporary. Just a phase. Just until things settled down. Just until next month. Just until they could catch their breath. And then one day a small win. A statement that wasn't as brutal. An account that wasn't screaming red. A week without notifications blowing up the phone. That's when they thought it. Finally. I can relax now. But something weird happened right after. No warning. No drama. No explosion. The pressure came back. Not like a punch. More like a slow squeeze. Almost polite about it. The total debt number didn't look that different, but the mental space got smaller. The future felt shorter. Every decision got heavier. They couldn't figure out why. The contracts were signed years ago. The interest rates were already baked in. The minimums were getting paid. So where was this feeling coming from? This sense that the system was always one step ahead, always watching, always waiting for that exact moment of relief to strike? Small things started adding up. Time felt like it was working against them. The payments they made didn't translate to freedom. Rest came with guilt attached. Like taking a breath was somehow the wrong move. Nothing exploded. Nothing broke. But something was clearly off. And the worst part wasn't the debt itself. It was realizing that the closer they got to feeling okay, the tighter everything got. Like relaxing was the mistake. Like the system knew. Like it was designed to punish comfort. You start noticing patterns when you're in it. The way relief always comes with a countdown. The way safety feels temporary by design. The way every moment of peace is borrowed time. It's not paranoia when the math backs it up. See, here's what they don't tell you when you sign up for this life. When you take that first credit card, that first loan, that first taste of living beyond your means because everyone else is doing it and it's just how things work now. They don't tell you that the game isn't about paying it off. It's about keeping you in motion. Paying enough to stay functional. Never enough to get free. The protagonist in this story, let's call them what they are, a prisoner who doesn't know they're in a cell, kept trying to do the right thing. Budgeting. Tracking. Cutting back. All the advice you see online. All the tips from people who got out. All the strategies that worked for someone else. But it never quite clicked. The progress was always just out of reach. Like running on a treadmill that speeds up every time you find your rhythm. And the really messed up part? They started blaming themselves. Started thinking maybe they weren't disciplined enough. Maybe they were missing something obvious. Maybe everyone else figured it out and they were just too dumb to see it. That's when the shame sets in. That's when it stops being about money and starts being about identity. You're not just in debt. You are debt. It defines you. It's there when you wake up. It's there when you try to sleep. It's there in every conversation about the future, every invitation you turn down, every dream you shelve. The debt becomes a second skin. Invisible to everyone else but constantly felt by you. And here's the thing that really twists the knife. The system makes it feel personal. Like it's your failure, your choices, your lack of control. But if you zoom out, if you look at the numbers, if you see how many people are living this exact same story with different details, you start to realize something darker. This isn't accidental. This isn't bad luck. This isn't a moral failing. This is design. Someone sat down and built this. Someone ran the numbers and realized that the sweet spot isn't crushing people immediately. It's keeping them functional, productive, and trapped. It's making them believe that relief is always just around the corner if they work a little harder, sacrifice a little more, hold on a little longer. The hope is the hook. The belief that it'll get better keeps you in the game. And every time you think you're winning, every time you feel that brief moment of okay, the system tightens just enough to remind you who's really in control. It's not you. And if you're starting to feel that sick recognition in your gut right now, that uncomfortable truth settling in, you're exactly where this story needs you to be. Because what comes next isn't about making you feel better. It's about showing you what's really happening while you're too busy trying to survive to notice. The question isn't whether you're in debt. The question is whether you understand what debt actually is. And spoiler alert, it's not what they told you it was. The system doesn't need you to panic. It needs you to function. Debt isn't built with numbers alone. It's built with hope. The hope that next month will be lighter. That the next payment will bring relief. That your effort is finally paying off. That you're almost there. But here's what nobody explains until it's too late. That temporary relief? That brief moment when things don't feel so heavy? That's not a bug in the system. That's a feature. When you think you can relax, you drop your guard. When you drop your guard, you accept terms you would have questioned before. When you accept those terms, time starts working. And time is the real killer here. Interest isn't just a percentage. It's a timer. Every month you spend thinking it's not that bad is another month the machine runs exactly as designed. Not to destroy you in one shot. That would be too obvious. Too actionable. Too easy to point at and say this is wrong. No, it's smarter than that. It keeps you functional. Productive. Paying. Always paying just enough to stay in the game but never enough to leave it. The psychological debt grows faster than the financial one. It takes up space in your head. Burns energy you don't have. Turns simple decisions into impossible choices. Do I fix the car or pay the card? Do I see the doctor or make the minimum? Do I eat well or stay current? Those aren't questions people should have to ask. But millions do. Every single day. And they think it's their fault for being in that position. That's the genius of it. It feels personal. It feels like if you were just smarter, more disciplined, better with money, you wouldn't be here. You look around and see people who seem fine, people who aren't stressed about every transaction, and you think, what's wrong with me? Nothing. Nothing is wrong with you. What's wrong is the game. And the game was rigged long before you sat down at the table. See, the moment you're born into this system, you're handed a script. Go to school. Get a job. Build credit. Buy things. Live the life everyone else is living. And if you can't afford it right now, that's fine. That's what credit is for. That's what loans are for. That's what society expects. Nobody tells you that credit isn't a tool for you. It's a tool for them. A way to extract value from your future self. A way to make you pay for today with tomorrow's freedom. And the interest? That's the price of pretending you had a choice. Our protagonists learned this the hard way. They watched their paychecks come in and vanish. Not to living large. Not to luxury. Just to existing. Rent, bills, food, minimums. The basics became the ceiling. And anything beyond that, savings, vacations, emergencies, peace of mind, that became fantasy. They started avoiding conversations about the future. Started saying no to things without explaining why. Started feeling this low-grade shame that never quite went away. Because when you're in it, when you're living it, you can't see the pattern. You just feel the weight. But zoom out. Look at the millions living this exact story. Look at the system that profits from it. Look at how normalized it's become to be in debt, to carry balances, to pay minimums, to live one unexpected expense away from collapse. That's not accidental. That's infrastructure. And the worst part isn't even the money. It's what it does to you over time. How it changes the way you see yourself. How it makes you smaller. More cautious. Less willing to take risks or dream big or believe that things could actually be different. The debt becomes your identity. You're not a person with debt. You're a debtor. And debtors don't get to relax. Debtors don't get to feel safe. Debtors exist in this constant state of low-level terror, waiting for the other shoe to drop, knowing that one bad month could unravel everything. And the system counts on that. It counts on you being too exhausted to fight back. Too ashamed to talk about it. Too isolated to realize you're not alone. But you're not alone. Not even close. The comments on videos like this? They're full of people living this same nightmare with different details. Different amounts. Different timelines. Same trap. If this sounds familiar, leave a comment. You don't need to explain everything. Sometimes one sentence sums it all up. You're not the only one carrying this invisible weight. Keep watching until the end. What comes next will change your perspective on this whole game. Because here's where it gets really dark. Once you understand that this system was designed, that it requires your participation, that it functions best when you believe you're almost free, you start to see something else. You start to see the math. Minimum payments aren't designed to clear your debt. They're designed to maximize the time you stay in debt. The longer you're in, the more you pay. Simple as that. $1,000 balance can turn into $3,000 over time if you're only paying minimums. And they know you're paying minimums. They counted on it. The relief you feel when you make a payment? That's not progress. That's pressure release. Just enough to keep you from breaking. Just enough to make you believe you're handling it. Just enough to keep you compliant. And the moment you feel okay, the moment you think maybe I can slow down, maybe I can take a break, that's when the next thing hits. The car breaks down. The medical bill arrives. The rent goes up. Always something. Always perfectly timed to remind you that safety is an illusion. Our protagonist started to notice this pattern. Started to see how every moment of relief was followed by a new demand. How the debt seemed to grow even when they were paying it. How the math never quite made sense but also couldn't be argued with because the contract was signed, the terms were clear, and they agreed to it. Except they didn't really agree. They needed to survive. And in a system where survival requires debt, agreement is just another word for coercion. That realization hits different. That moment when you understand that your choices were never really choices. That the freedom you thought you had was just a longer leash. That the system doesn't care if you suffer as long as you keep paying. That's when the anger starts. Or the numbness. Or the despair. Different people react differently. But everyone reaches that point eventually. That moment where they realize they're not climbing out. They're just digging slower. And if you're sitting there right now feeling that weight in your chest, that sick recognition that this is your life too, that this isn't just a story but a mirror, then you're ready for what comes next. Because understanding the trap is only the first step. Understanding why the trap exists, who built it, and who profits from your suffering. That's where this gets real. Over time, the effects stop being just financial. The anxiety shows up before bed. Lying there doing math in your head. Running scenarios. Trying to figure out how to make it all work. Knowing you won't sleep well but going through the motions anyway because what else can you do? The shame creeps into normal conversations. Someone mentions a concert, a trip, a dinner out, and you feel it. That instant calculation. That reflexive no. That excuse you've used so many times it doesn't even sound like a lie anymore. And they smile and say no worries but you see it. That quick judgment. That assumption that you're just bad with money. The stagnation becomes who you are. Not what you're going through. Not a phase. Not temporary. It becomes your identity. The person who can't. The person who's always struggling. The person who used to have dreams but now just has bills. You work. You pay. You survive. But you don't grow. You don't build. You don't move forward. The system turns effort into maintenance. Not progress. You're not climbing. You're treading water. And every month that passes where you stay afloat feels like a win, even though you're in the exact same spot you were last year. And the year before. And the year before that. And the cruelest part? It doesn't feel abusive. Not in the obvious way. Not in a way you can point to and say this is wrong. Each individual thing seems reasonable. The interest rate isn't illegal. The minimum payment is manageable. The terms were disclosed. You signed. You agreed. So how can you complain? But when you add it all up, when you step back and see the whole picture, when you realize that every piece was designed to work together to keep you exactly where you are, that's when it clicks. This isn't incompetence. This isn't bad luck. This isn't your failure. This is architecture. And if something was architected, someone drew the blueprints. Someone ran the numbers. Someone decided that this was the optimal way to extract value from human beings while keeping them functional enough to keep producing. Our protagonist reached this point later than most. They'd spent years thinking they were the problem. Years believing that if they just worked harder, saved smarter, sacrificed more, they'd break through. But the breakthrough never came. Instead, something else happened. A kind of clarity that only comes from prolonged suffering. The kind of understanding that's earned, not taught. They started seeing the patterns everywhere. Not just in their own life but in everyone around them. Friends stuck in the same cycle. Family members drowning quietly. Co-workers living paycheck to paycheck despite doing everything right. And they started asking different questions. Not how do I fix this for me, but why is this the default for everyone? Why is debt normalized? Why is it sold as a tool for building wealth when the math clearly shows it does the opposite? Why are minimum payments legal when they're specifically designed to maximize profit and minimize progress? Why does the system punish people for being poor and reward them for already having money? Those questions don't have comfortable answers. The truth is the system works exactly as intended. It was built by people who benefit from it, maintained by institutions that profit from it, defended by politicians who are funded by it, and normalized by a culture that worships wealth but punishes poverty. Debt isn't a personal failing, it's a business model. And you're not the customer, you're the product. Every month you carry a balance, someone's making money off your suffering. Every time you pay interest, you're funding someone else's wealth. Every moment you spend stressed about money, you're powering a machine that requires your desperation to function. The credit card companies know exactly what they're doing. They've got teams of psychologists and data analysts figuring out the precise point where people will pay but not revolt. The sweet spot between functional and desperate. They know that if they destroy you completely, you stop paying. But if they keep you hopeful, keep you believing that you're almost there, keep you making those minimums, you'll pay forever. Or until you die, whichever comes first. And the debt doesn't die with you, by the way. They'll come after your estate, your family, anyone they can extract one more dollar from. That's not a system designed to help people. That's a system designed to consume them. Our protagonist understood this eventually. Understood that the game was rigged from the start. That the stress they felt wasn't irrational. That the exhaustion wasn't weakness. That the shame wasn't deserved. But understanding doesn't fix it. That's the really messed up part. You can see the machine clearly and still be caught in it. Still have to make the payments. Still have to play the game. Because opting out isn't really an option. Not when your credit score determines where you can live, what you can drive, sometimes even where you can work. They've made it so the only way to survive is to participate. And participation means debt. And debt means control. You think you're free because you can choose which credit card to use, which loan to take, which payment plan to sign up for. But those aren't choices. Those are illusions of choice. The real choice, whether to play at all, that was made for you before you were born. And the pressure you feel when you try to relax? That's not coincidence. That's not bad timing. That's the system reminding you that you don't get to rest. Not while you still owe. Not while they still have leverage. Not while you're still useful. The debt tightens when you relax because relaxation is dangerous to the system. Comfortable people ask questions. Rested people have energy to resist. Safe people stop accepting unacceptable terms. So the system never lets you get comfortable. Never lets you rest. Never lets you feel safe. It gives you just enough relief to keep you hoping, then tightens again before you can catch your breath. Over and over. Month after month. Year after year. Until you forget what it feels like to not be anxious. Until the stress becomes baseline. Until you stop imagining a different life because imagining hurts too much. That's the goal. Not to break you outright, but to break you slowly. To hollow you out from the inside. To turn a human being with dreams and potential into a payment-making machine that doesn't question, doesn't resist, doesn't stop. And if you're sitting there feeling this in your bones, feeling the weight of recognition, feeling angry or sad or numb or all three at once, that means something important. It means you're still human. Still capable of seeing what's being done to you. Still able to feel outrage at injustice even when that injustice is wrapped in contracts and terms of service and the appearance of legitimacy. The system counts on you staying isolated. Staying ashamed. Staying convinced that this is your fault and yours alone. Because the moment you realize you're not alone, the moment you see how many people are trapped in this exact same cycle, that's when things get dangerous for them. That's when people start talking. Organizing. Refusing. That's when the machine starts to break down. But we're not there yet. Most people are still in the fog. Still blaming themselves. Still trying to budget their way out of a structural problem. Still believing the lie that hard work and discipline will set them free. Our protagonist isn't free. They understand now, but understanding doesn't pay the bills. Doesn't erase the debt. Doesn't give back the years spent in quiet desperation. But it does change something. It changes the story you tell yourself. It changes who you blame. It changes what you're willing to accept going forward. And that might not sound like much, but it's everything. Because a population that understands it's being exploited is a population that can't be controlled the same way anymore. The question isn't whether you're trapped. You are. The question is what you do with that knowledge. Whether you let it crush you or whether you let it clarify things. Make you sharper. More aware. Less willing to play along. Because if there's a design, there's a designer. And if there's a designer, there's someone benefiting from your pain. And once you see that clearly, once you really internalize it, everything changes. Not your circumstances. Not immediately. But your understanding of what those circumstances actually mean. And who's responsible for them. The logic is simple once you see it clearly. Brutal but simple. The system needs you to feel relief without freedom. Needs you to pay without progressing. Needs you to mistake survival for success. That's why debt tightens when you relax. It's not bad luck. It's not coincidence. It's not even personal. It's mechanical. It's how the machine was built to operate. When you believe you're safe, you stop being vigilant. You accept terms you wouldn't have accepted before. You sign things without reading. You take on more because you think you can handle it. And the moment you do, the clock starts again. Time, interest, minimums. They keep working in the background while you're busy trying to live your life. While you're working, sleeping, trying to enjoy the few moments that don't feel heavy. The machine doesn't stop. It doesn't take breaks. It doesn't care if you're tired. And the most twisted part? The system makes you complicit in your own exploitation. Makes you feel responsible. Makes you defend it sometimes because admitting you're trapped means admitting you made mistakes, and that's harder than just grinding through another month. Our protagonist finally understood this. Not as an abstract concept but as a lived reality. They saw how every choice they'd made was constrained by choices someone else made decades earlier. How the game was set up long before they started playing. How the odds were calculated to benefit the house, always. They weren't stupid. They weren't lazy. They weren't irresponsible. They were just human. Trying to survive in a system designed to extract maximum value from human survival. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. You start noticing it everywhere. In every advertisement promising fulfillment through purchase. In every loan marketed as opportunity. In every financial product sold as freedom that actually delivers the opposite. You see how the language is crafted. How they call it credit instead of debt. How they talk about building instead of borrowing. How they frame consumption as investment and desperation as aspiration. The whole thing is a con. A massive, legal, socially accepted con that's been running so long people think it's just how life works. Just the way things are. Just the price of living in modern society. But it's not. It doesn't have to be. It's a choice someone made. A system someone designed. A machine someone built and someone else maintains and a whole lot of people profit from. And the profit isn't small. We're talking billions. Trillions. Entire industries built on the back of people who can't afford to live but can't afford to stop trying. People stuck in that impossible middle space between collapse and comfort. People like our protagonist. People like you. The credit card industry alone makes over $100 billion a year in interest and fees. That's not revenue. That's pure profit extracted from people who are already struggling. Money taken from people who need it and given to people who absolutely don't. And they've convinced society that this is normal. That this is how things should work. That if you can't handle it, that's your problem, not theirs. They've even made it shameful to talk about. Made it taboo to admit you're struggling. Made it seem like a personal failure instead of a systemic design. So people suffer alone. Blame themselves alone. Break down alone. That isolation is intentional. Because the moment people start comparing notes, start sharing numbers, start realizing they're all living the same nightmare with different details, that's when solidarity happens. That's when people start asking why. That's when the machine becomes visible. And visibility is the enemy of exploitation. Our protagonist started talking. Not to everyone. Not loudly. But to the people they trusted. And they found out they weren't alone. Not even close. Their best friend was drowning too. Their sister. Their coworker. All of them pretending to be fine while barely holding on. All of them believing they were the only one. All of them carrying shame that didn't belong to them. All of them trapped in the same system while being convinced it was individual failure. That's the final piece. The last layer of the trap. Isolation. Shame. The belief that you're alone in your struggle. Because as long as you believe that, you'll keep trying to solve it alone. Keep thinking it's your problem to fix. Keep paying and paying and paying without ever questioning why the game is set up this way in the first place. But here's what they don't want you to know. Here's the thing that scares them more than anything else. You're not alone. This isn't your fault. And understanding that changes everything. Not your bank account. Not overnight. Not in any immediate practical way. But it changes your relationship to the suffering. Changes who you blame. Changes what you're willing to accept as normal. And that might not sound like much when you're still making minimum payments and losing sleep and trying to figure out how to survive another month. But it's the difference between thinking you're broken and understanding you're being broken. Between internalizing the pain and directing it where it actually belongs. The system relies on you staying confused. Staying compliant. Staying convinced that this is just life and you need to deal with it. But it's not just life. It's a specific set of choices made by specific people for specific reasons. And those reasons have nothing to do with your well-being and everything to do with their profit. The debt tightens when you relax because the system can't allow you to feel permanently safe. Safe people don't stay desperate. Desperate people don't stay productive in the way the system needs them to be. So it keeps you in that zone. Not destroyed because that's not useful, but not comfortable either. Just stressed enough to keep paying. Just hopeful enough to keep trying. Just tired enough to not fight back. That's the design. That's the function. That's the entire point. And now you know. You know why relief never lasts. Why safety feels temporary. Why every time you think you can breathe, something tightens. It's not you. It's not bad luck. It's not the universe conspiring against you. It's a system doing exactly what it was built to do. So what now? That's the question, right? You understand the trap. You see the machine. You know you're not alone. So what actually changes? That depends on you. On whether you let this knowledge break you down further or whether you let it wake you up. Whether you keep playing along because you don't see another option or whether you start looking for the exits, even if they're not obvious yet. Our protagonist is still in it, still making payments, still trapped in the mechanics of survival. But they're not confused anymore. They're not ashamed anymore. They're not blaming themselves anymore. And that shift, small as it might seem, is everything. Because a person who understands they're being exploited is a person who can't be controlled the same way anymore. Who asks different questions. Who makes different choices when choices become available. The system counts on your ignorance, your isolation, your shame. Take those away and the machine starts to struggle. Not immediately, not dramatically, but it starts to lose the grip it had on you. And if you want to understand how this system got normalized in the first place, how it became so embedded in society that people defend it, how it turned from predatory lending into standard adult life, the next video breaks that down completely. Because this isn't new. This machine has been running for a long time. And understanding its history, its evolution, how it spread and became accepted, that's crucial to seeing the full picture. Go watch that now. This video gave you the what and the why. The next one gives you the how. How this became normal. How an entire generation got sold on debt as opportunity. How the trap became so sophisticated that people walk into it willingly and defend it afterward. That's the final piece. And you need to see it. Click that video. Keep going. This isn't over yet. See you there.